Hi and welcome to the first ever Page One Sessions. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And we've got a great debut episode for you with Tim Lebbon and Sarah Pinborough, but unfortunately, it being the first episode, there were some technical gremlins, and Tim's video feed didn't record, but he did kindly send us a photograph that we can use instead, and his voice is as smooth as ever.
The photograph he did send had a striking similarity to Henry Cavill, which I didn't realise how much he looked like him at first.
He did, yes. But fortunately, we managed to find a more up-to-date picture, shall we say, of him. Anyway, we'll get on with it and hope you enjoy the podcast. At each of these sessions, we're going to speak to a couple of our favourite authors or guests that we've had on the podcast before. And this week we have Tim Lebbon and Sarah Pinborough. So here they are. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Cheers.
I'm sorry.
Cheers.
I'm sorry you couldn't get any of your favourite authors.
Yeah.
But,
We settled for you. What can I say? How are you both doing in these mad and crazy times?
Yeah, not too bad actually. I've found my rhythm, which basically involves eating. Just basically eating. That's what I do now. That's my, I haven't got time to write. I'm just eating.
yeah.
I'm quite sure that was the reason why they said not to buy 12 items of everything in the supermarket, because they knew everybody would just eat it all straight away and become fat as hell. And so
Eat it in the first week and go back the week after.
Exactly, yeah.
Crates of beer and I'm okay. My bottle recycling box is a bit embarrassing each week. I blame it on my kids. My daughter's home from uni, and she it's me though, to be fair. And my son's 17, and he's just discovered Corona. I don't like it very much, but he bought a crate today, so I'm having one. Yeah.
I'm actually drinking less in lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's literally just me and the dog in the house. So I've kind of gone to. There's never any nights out, so I'm never at someone's house for dinner where you drink, like quite a lot more and wake up feeling awful. So it's literally like one glass a night, maybe less than half a bottle. I mean, I'm having less days off than I used to have. Yeah. But it's also just become that kind of like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, glass of wine. Takes me a couple of hours to drink it, but it's not, So actually, in that regard, it's not been too bad. Yeah, but I think because I think if I lived with somebody else, I'd be smashed from lunchtime. Especially in the early weeks when we all thought we were going to die if we brushed past someone.
Exactly.
I think it is amazing how much it always kind of feels like it could be a Friday. It's like it's Tuesday, but it's like, well, is it Friday? I think it might be Friday. I'll just have a drink.
Especially when the sun's out. And if I go outside to do some work, it's the worst thing. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, feels like Saturday. Maybe I should have a little drink on the decking, And then you're like, no, it's literally Monday.
I'm an alcoholic. Yeah.
I don't know what days. It's my months I'm getting mixed up. I barely remember what month it is. My wife keeps observing that lockdown started in a different season. And it's what year are we going to come out of this? Who knows?
Well, March went on forever, didn't it? Like because I got the last time I was in a room. I mean, I've had a friend in my garden the other day, which was the height of excitement. But last time I was in a room with someone was the 1st of March.
Yeah.
I got sick, and then lockdown started, and then it was like, but March seemed to go on and on. May was gone like this, I think.
Yeah, days flit by now, I find. I mean, I try and get up before the kids they lie in till 10ish maybe. I'm trying to get up about 7:30 and do a couple of hours work before they're up, because my wife's working from home
by 5:30.
Yeah, I know, you're a freak though. I mean,
but now I'd be quite happy to go a bit later, because everyone's got, we've all got the distancing down pat in the park. But of course now the dog, like 5 o'clock, he's there going, come on, it's a hot day, get up, let's go. So actually it's quite nice, because it's a bit like you, Tim, really, because then I can be back and working by 7.
Yeah.
I've still got a couple of hours before anybody's at their desk, and then by 9:30 you think, actually, I've done quite a lot, and then you can do all the other crap you've got to do around the house.
Well, I mean, I suppose one thing that a lot of people have, struggled to adapt to working at home and all of that sort of stuff, but you know, for you guys, I suppose working at home is the norm anyway. So that part of the
problems though,
hasn't changed.
Tim, didn't you? Tim, to start with, wasn't it a bit of a problem for you because of all your family?
They haven't been such a problem. I mean, the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was pretty discombobulated. It's become my favorite word. And, you know, like Sarah said, we all thought we were going to die and everything was just a bit odd. And you were waiting. And, you know, those first couple of weeks before lockdown, when old bumbling Boris was farting around, wondering about whether he was going to lock down or shake people's hands. And
you mean when we all actually probably had it those weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. And then around that time, there was talk of unis closing, and my daughter was in Aberystwyth University. She was finishing the last year. So we were sort of, is she going to come home? When's she going to come home? And we were sort of in contact with her. You know, are you going to come home? Are you going to stay? And she's, I'm not sure what my friends are doing. As soon as we got her home, it sort of started to settle a bit. But then there was the schools closing, and then lockdown and uncertainty, and then 1,000 people a day dying and all that. So I was a bit of a mess, not a mess, but I heard it said, I mean, I'm generally fairly laid back most of the time, and oh yeah, whatever. But I've heard it said that people who suffer from anxiety through their lives are now quite laid back because they're saying, I told you so. It's all going to hit the fan, and they're all
training my whole life at this moment.
Yeah. People who are sort of who tend to go through life less anxious are sort of suffering a bit. And I had a bit of a bad day today, really, just about, you know, you can't avoid what's going on in America at the moment. And it just feels like it's the end of days. It's, you know, what the hell else can go wrong that would surprise us? Very little, to be honest.
Don't.
We've got Peter Hornets as well, you know?
I know. Well, I saw there was someone sent around a story saying that they'd found a cave. They'd opened a cave that had been closed for 2 million years or something, and found 33 creatures alive in it. And someone had posted, "Just close the cave immediately. This isn't the year for this."
About 15 people sent me that because I wrote the silence, which started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the first few weeks were very. I mean, because I am a natural worrier, but I'm also a control freak. So, like Tim, I had some problems because I wasn't in control of it. You know, I bought everybody gloves. You know, everybody I know, I had gloves on their doorstep because I was so prepared. And I remember worrying about this in January. Like when I remember being on holiday in like the first week of January and reading tiny news item and thinking, that's coming here. And I'd be taught, my friend of mine's a biologist, and I'd say to her, I'm worried about this China thing. We should, you know, like we should be thinking about this. And she was like, don't be silly. It's not coming here. And now I'm like, oh yeah, great. You know, listen to Sarah the worrier. But I think when I was kind of worrying, and then I had a moment of relief when we actually got some cases, weirdly, because it was like I was every day waiting but then, like Tim, I think there was a lot of Netflix, and I was just sitting on the sofa thinking, you know, like, and just watching old things again. Like I went through a real old black and white. It was like comfort viewing, I think. And then I I don't know about you, Tim, but it was like you'd have like one day where you could do some work, and then maybe 2 days where you hadn't slept and you felt like shit, and and then one good day, and then it suddenly kind of went 2 good days.
Yeah.
And now I've got my work mojo is bang on. I'm like solidly working. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm okay now. I'm working. I've written most of a novel. I've finished a novel during lockdown on in notebooks, curiously enough, which I have yet to transcribe. So that's another big thing. But so I've done that. I've done a TV pilot, and I'm doing other stuff. So I am working. But we do live in a small house with 4 adults, 1 bathroom, 3 beds.
That's what I meant when I said you had problems, because I don't know if you remember, but when we had a Skype early on, you said, I'm not used to working with everybody in the house, and I'm going to go to my little bubble in the garden. And it was you were really quite worried about it, about actually working. I mean, when I first got my dog, I found it difficult to work with him in the house. It took a little while to get used to that. So I don't know how I'd do it with the whole family in the house.
Circulated. I mean, we've got luckily we've got a nice cabin in the garden, so that during the nice weather, I've been retreating out there. And because I've written the new novel longhand, I can write anywhere. So I've written in the cabin, I've written sitting in the garden, I've written in my office where I am now. living room, bedroom. Haven't written in the bath yet, although I did take a phone call from my agent in the bath the other day. He found hilarious. Yeah. It all you find the rhythm, and you find the sort of I'm not sure I like the term the new normal, because this is far from normal, but you find a rhythm. And my kids were, until recently, both still working on school and uni work. Ellie's actually officially finished uni now, so she's sort of, what do I do? And my son is sitting in the garden doing some work now, right outside this room. It's just odd though, isn't it? You do. I found myself getting into the work zone and enjoying that. If it's something I get plunged, I've written a couple of short stories as well, and I've really got stuck into them. It
is. I think my editor said to me on the phone the other day that she was like, she occasionally still wakes up and has a surreal moment of, oh, this really did happen or is happening.
Yeah.
But I think, I put an article up that a friend of mine sent me, actually. I think it might have been the Atlantic or the New York Times, and it was talking about how pandemics end.
I read that.
And it's saying that, actually there's two endings to a pandemic. There's when the disease actually goes away, and when everyone gets bored of being scared about the disease. Yeah. And actually that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
When I walked out this afternoon, I made myself, because I've been doing the park in the morning, but I've been a bit wary of it in the afternoon because a lot of kids are jumping, there's a river and there's always so much rubbish in the morning and beer bottles. I thought, I don't really want to go. But I went down, and the actual park itself was nice. It was quite sedate and people having picnics. Then I went down this little path, and there was just this whole party of people and kids, and clearly no social distancing happening. And I just thought, we're at that point now where it's almost like people kind of make this mental thing of, oh yeah, it's only people dying over there in the care homes or in the hospitals.
Yeah.
Old and fat and a man, and then they've kind of, it's like people have thought, oh, and the thing is, I've got it too. There's a bit of me that's like, oh, I just want to go to a restaurant, and sit across a table from, it was supposed to be Crime Fest this weekend. And I was like, God, I should be going, Simon Koenig, Kevin Wignall and Tom Wood, and we should be going for our dinner. And, my friend Tom has a lot of food allergies, and they always go to this posh restaurant the first night, and we always go to Pizza Express because they're really good with food allergies, weirdly. And we go and have a little catch up. Then the next night, big posh dinner. And of course, none of that's happening. None of the festivals are happening. And I was really looking forward to catching up with Tim at StokerCon, because that was going to be my first horror one for ages.
Yeah.
And, so all those kind of, as antisocial as I am as a rule, those things and now I'm kind of like, oh, let's just put 2020 in a box and get on with it. But obviously we can't do that because loads of people would die. But I can see how in the olden days, back in the days of plague and pre-internet and pre-news from around the world in your living room, people just had to get on with it, didn't they? Just got on with it.
Looking at the lockdown and stuff, it has been obviously a difficult time, and there's all this, as you say, there's so much distraction and information, while at the same time, for a lot of people, they're stuck at home with a lot of time on their hands, it would seem. But just from anecdotally and looking on social media and stuff, it seems that a lot of people are having difficulty being able to create. A lot of people at the start I saw thought, oh, this is great, I'll write my book now and all this sort of stuff, but it's never happened. They've just fallen into habits of not doing it. So whereas you guys say that you have managed to keep it on, which do you think that's partly because in a lot of ways your routine, despite all the changes that we've discussed, hasn't changed as much?
No, I think because a lot of writers, like professional writers who've been writing lots of books, I've seen struggle, especially in the early weeks, struggled. I've been quite lucky in that the things I've been working on, so I've 2 TV things, but the Ep1 outlines were done before lockdown. Right. So although things have changed, the actual, I didn't have to make it, the main making up, as it were, was done, and then I'm doing a film adaptation, but it's an adaptation of a book, so that the main thinking work is done. But I do think, I don't think the brain is at its creative best in that first couple of weeks when you're literally thinking, have I got enough pasta? I think that,
have I got enough toilet roll?
Thinking, this is the perfect time to make up to plot a thriller. I think your brain's in a different mode, and I think people have got into it, but I think that whole this is the perfect time I just wanted to punch everybody who posted that. This is the perfect time to write your book. Oh, cock off. It's the perfect time to worry. And Tim, what's your thoughts? Sorry, I just ranted.
There was so Tariq's frozen. Can you hear us, Tariq?
I just fell asleep there.
I thought I was into a coma.
Sarah thought she'd send you the...
You set a picture there and just wandered off.
I printed off an image of myself just stuck in front of the camera, and I've been downstairs for the last 20 minutes.
Like all the best bank robbery thrillers,
exactly. Sure, what happened?
So creating during lockdown. So there was an interesting, because we were weeks behind Italy. There was an interesting thing from a woman in lockdown in Italy. She said, and I think she sort of wrote an open letter on social media to Britain. She said, right, I've got to tell you, you're not going to learn to play the ukulele. You're not going to get fit. You're not going to write your first novel. You're going to be angst-ridden and stressed and pissed and overweight and putting weight on. And generally, I think she was right. I think people like me and Sarah who write for a living, we're just carrying on working, really. With a few blips here and there and a few bumps in the road. And
also the industry hasn't stopped working. So, TV and film, everyone is still full on. I mean, I know they're not filming, but they're all full on it, so I'm having Skypes with people who've just come off a 4-hour work meeting on this. So it's not like, it's, like with publishing, it's like, okay, off you go, write your book. Whereas with TV, it's like, okay, here's the notes on the episode. Do you want to jump on a call tomorrow? Okay, let's do that. What are we going to do with that? Oh, what about that bit? So you're kind of constantly in this, and so it's a bit, I think it's a bit more helpful to getting going when you've got, and also if you've been paid for something, got to do it, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
that actually
I promised to start my new book yesterday, and now I've decided I'm waiting until my new keypad for the iPad turns up.
That actually leads on to a question. We've had a few questions in from listeners, and one of them is from Lucy, who says she'd like to know whether or not you find it easier or harder to find inspiration, while this is all kind of happening around us. And are you worried that it's real life at the moment is so mad that it's actually, do people want to read about things that are crazy and manic, or do folk want to read things that are the opposite of what's happening right now? Do folk want to find comfort in more kind of grounded stories right now, you think?
It hasn't affected what I'm working on. It hasn't made me, the novel I was writing and finished recently didn't change, I don't think, because of lockdown and coronavirus. I'm not sure whether it's any good. It's probably shit. But then I think that, it's like novel 45, I think. And I always think, oh, that's just terrible. So by the time I rewrite it and rework it and
by the time it comes out, hopefully, this is going to be a distant memory.
Yeah, well, that's it as well. It's not sold. I mean, everything I'm working on is speculative at the moment. I'm not under contract. I wrote the novel on spec. I've got a thriller idea that I'm going to be working on soon on spec, and then 2 or 3 TV things I'm working on, which are all one is I'm not actually working on it, but I'm sort of having a bit of input, and that's sold. But other TV stuff I'm working on is all on spec. So it's not like I'm working because I'm under deadline. I'm working because I want another contract,
And also, I think a lot of the things that people are buying now, and you look at the top Amazon reads, the thrillers are still selling. It's the thrillers, the dark stuff. I mean, the people who like uplifting fiction will go to uplifting fiction for comfort. The people who like a horror novel or a horror film will go to a horror novel or a horror film for comfort. It's what you enjoy. So I think. I'm not sure. And then also there's people who really want to read an end of the world book. I could literally not bother with that right now. I was not one of the people watching in the first week of this. I thought, I do not need that. I can live, my imagination is doing all that for me. I don't need to watch Contagion. But, I think it's, if someone gave me a bunch of, and no offense to people who write romance or very, the kind of very pink cover books, those would not cheer me up in this time. Whereas something I can get lost in will. So a good thriller, a good sci-fi or a horror novel or whatever, I'm much more likely to enjoy. So it's all personal, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it is. There were a lot of people right at the beginning saying there's no way I'd read a pandemic book now, and then loads of people said, "Oh, I'm starting to read The Stand again." And I've been toying with rereading The Stand because I haven't read it in like 15 or 20 years, but it's like 5,500
And you know what? The extended version is no. I mean, I know that that's the King preferred version, but I liked the original version.
Yeah.
It's like about 1,000 pages less, but you can't put it anywhere now.
You can't.
And I think people are rereading The Stand because although it's a virus novel, it's also comfort reading. It's something most of us read when we were younger and braver. And actually, also, good overcomes evil and all this stuff.
And also,
it has made me think I'd be shit in an apocalypse. I'd be really crap. If I was the last person on Earth, I'd be really shit. All I'd worry about would be losing my dog.
You wouldn't be the last person on Earth. You'd be the first zombie, basically, wouldn't you? You'd be hunted pretty much straight away. Zombie
you should be so lucky to be the last person on Earth.
Yeah, obviously.
Although you mentioned Contagion, Sarah, there was one of the first films Tracy watched, my wife, when it all, yeah, and I've seen it before, and I didn't watch it with her. I was working, but I popped in now and then, and it was just like watching the news, basically.
And we all know the thing about touching your face, and Contagion's full of it, isn't it? And I was like, I do not need to watch a film that literally tells me I've got no chance because
social distancing. Yeah.
But it's funny as well how things that were so normal suddenly, if you're watching a film and it's like a massive crowd scene, or people walk into a room and hug and shake hands and stuff, it's part of your brain sort of going, oh, what are they doing?
Yeah,
can't be doing that.
When I went to the park I walked through the park on the way back from somewhere the other day, and there were families were in the park, and it wasn't very busy, but I was getting quite like a bit weirded out by it, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I realised, obviously, I've literally no one has been within 2 meters of me, which is why I've given up showering. for that whole thing. But these families, they're they touch someone else, or they're close to someone else. Whereas I'm literally, if I see anybody closer than 2 meters, I'm like, what are they doing? They're not supposed to be so close. So I think it's going to take me a long time before I want to be very social again, and not because I'm scared, but just that I'm just not in the habit of it anymore. I've kind of got out of the habit.
Setting. Like I said, we've been supermarket shopping every week since it started, and Tracy and I take it in turns. In the first couple of weeks, I went to Morrison's, and it was really odd and surreal with the queuing to get in and the distancing, the masks, and it was a really stressful first shop for me going around Morrison's, and also we're spending like so much money, like 200 quid a week on food and booze is horrific. So I came home and we were unpacking all the food, and we were in the kitchen. My daughter was helping me, and I was sort of, you were a bit close. I thought, it's my daughter, I live with her, and even in that 2-hour slot, I got into the mindset of, you're not supposed to be close to me. Really,
yeah,
really.
It's like I went, and I still do it. I still wipe down my shopping.
Yeah.
It's a habit now, and I think I'm not actually worried about it anymore. But I think if I stop doing it, I'm going to jinx myself. That sort of it's become a habit. So I'm actually like, well, I'm going to, and it's actually not even a pain anymore. It's literally just what I do. I bring it in the house, I wipe it down, I put it away, I wipe the sides down. If I'm not going to touch it for a few days, it just goes in the garage. Or as I like to call it, the decontamination chamber. It's like parcels go in there, everything goes in there for 3 days, and then it gets opened.
Yeah.
You just didn't know, did you? So I was like, well, I live on my own. I don't want to get sick in my house on my own. I'm going to be careful.
Mm. But although it hasn't changed what you've written, do you think it will? Say they don't come up with a vaccine that gets rid of it or whatever in a year, so that there are certain changes to, even not scary changes, but these sorts of changes that go to the supermarket is a different thing. People don't work in the office as much and things like that. Do you think novels and or TV and film will become dated if they're talking about the old way of doing things, if you see what I mean? I think
it's actually the reverse. I think people who are putting too much corona stuff in now will get dated. Because I think actually the world is not sustainable like this. It will have to, pubs will open properly and restaurants will open properly. And it'll either be, you can have an instant test on the spot, which I think is what their aim is, that you can test as people go into work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, and at the moment, I don't put cancer in all my books, and cancer kills a lot more people than COVID is killing.
Yeah.
Awful as that sounds, And so I might have the odd antibacterial wipe, but in none of my TV things, even ones that I haven't. I had a call with a company called Red the other day and want to come up with a thing for BBC, and she said to me, "What's your view on including COVID stuff?" And I said, "Well, I don't think it's sexy, and we want to write a sexy thriller." And she was like, "Oh, thank God." She said, "Because we're not interested in people wearing masks and washing their hands." And I thought, well, I don't put people having a shit in my books. I do that, you know. So if the world is if we are doing things like washing our hands every 20 minutes, I'm not going to be putting that. I'm just going to presume people will figure these characters are doing that. You know, I mean, I'm hoping I'm right. I may be wrong, and we've got to, but it's going to make for some very boring reading.
So I wonder. I mean, you're talking about taking a shit there. So two thoughts spring instantly to mind. One of them is Millennium Falcon. Where is the shitter? Okay. I never saw 24. Jack Bauer 24.
You never had.
No, I never.
He never says, "Can we stop killing people for a minute?"
Can I just?
Yeah. That's what the ad breaks. That's what the ad breaks was for. Every 15 minutes, he was right in the toilet.
So I don't know what I mean, Tim. What are you going to do? Are you going to factor it in?
Hasn't even crossed my mind, to be honest.
No.
Mind to. I don't. No, I don't think so. Really hasn't.
There was a whole thread on Facebook actually with some crime writers and horror writers, and some people were saying it's so important, we've got to mention it in our fiction. And I was like, listen, if I was a literary writer and I was going to write the great COVID novel, I'd mention it. But you know, I'm not. We're in the entertainment business here, people. I hate to break it to you. You know, like we're not writing books that are going to be remembered for hundreds of years. We're literally earning money better than the people who are writing the books that are going to be remembered for hundreds of years.
Yeah, so, probably true. I mean, I did write a short story. Sorry, Terry. I did write a short story that featured somebody coming out of lockdown. So I guess it has filtered into what I do. Totally, I guess.
They're already announcing books. Like there's one that was announced called Love in Lockdown or Love Under Lockdown, and I just thought, it felt a little bit like you're cashing in on.
Yeah.
Granny's dying. Clearly not written the book yet, or it's going to be a really shit book that was written in like 3 weeks. And I'm sure there'll be some books that do it brilliantly, that come up with clever. But I think when I come out of this, I don't want to be revisiting it in my entertainment for a little while. And I also think, on a more serious note, I don't think we'll really understand how we feel about it yet. You know, like I think it'll take a year or two before we really feel the impact of.
That's going to depend on how fast things change from now on, I think.
I just mean the emotional impact. I don't really know how I felt when lockdown happened yet, because we're not quite out of it, if you know what I mean.
That's what I mean, though. If we got a long tail now of, supermarkets with screens for the next year or two, whether they come up with a vaccine or not. And I seriously doubt they're going to come up with a vaccine that cures it. They'll come up with a vaccine like they do for flu that lessens the symptoms and makes it.
I think they'll have a treatment rather than a vaccine.
Yeah, exactly. That. Yeah, like they do for the flu. So I think that's going to depend on how long we've still got this. I mean, partly media-wise, partly the forefront of the media. There'll come a time in a month or two where it's not the headlines every single day and 24 hours a day on 24-hour news, which is I'm trying to not to watch so much news because it just gets in your head, and it's always the same news. Most days it's the same news.
Where is Dominic Cummings? Where is he today? Or is he in direction?
Well, I mean, we have discovered how to take an eye test, a new way to get an eye test.
Well, then, if we take a step back from the future of writing and to look at the writing that you guys are doing right now, I mean, Tim, you've got Eden that's just come out recently. Sarah, Dead to Her is out in the States and about to launch in the UK.
The hardback's out in in August, but the ebook is coming out on Thursday.
Oh, very exciting news! It's out on Thursday. So you've both got books either about to come out or just come out, and how does the lockdown and the COVID situation, how does that change launching a book right now?
It must be quite difficult. Tim, I need to get yourself a whiskey right
now.
Is
that maybe a tough question?
Well, do you know what? I mean, it's something I go up and down on. I mean, first of all, Eden StokerCon would have been when, Sarah? Mid-April?
Yeah. Yeah.
StokerCon, and then a week after StokerCon was going to be my first ever official book tour around the UK with Christina Henry from the States. So obviously that didn't happen. That doesn't matter. But having a book launch during lockdown has been a interesting experience, to say the least. Titan have been great, supporting it as much as they can. But what can you do when people can't walk in a shop and buy your book? You know, it's out in the States officially now as a paperback and an ebook. Nobody in the States is really interested in buying books to read at the moment. I don't think they're, you know, with what's going on over there on top of COVID. But also, even from day one, I've been saying to my wife, you know, I was hoping this would be a big book for me, but it doesn't matter, really. It's in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. But people who like my stuff are still buying it and reading it. It's not going to be a breakout novel. It's not going to sell tens of thousands and get me a massive deal. But it's a good book and people like it, and I'm, you know, there's screen potential with it and stuff like that. So and totally in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter.
And I do think for Tim and I, it's I think if you were a debut and it was your first book coming out, I know a few people who've had their first, maybe not their first book, but their first mainstream book or whatever coming out.
That's worse.
You're kind of excited, and then your launch is cancelled, and then, especially if they're not the big books, yes, that's also sad. But people who've got their first kind of mainstream deal, it might not be a great deal, but it's a mainstream deal. I think that must be quite hard. I mean, like with Dead to Her, I'm so zen. I've kind of written it off because also all the books have moved. So whereas we were pretty much sure we had the supermarkets, now we have no idea because everybody's moved to August, September, October. So odds are on we might not get the supermarkets. If you don't have the supermarkets, you've got nothing because there's nothing. So, you know, I mean, I know Harper will do whatever they can, but obviously there's no tube campaigns. There's no all these things that you kind of normally have. So, but I think that my zen, if I'm honest. Oh yeah, and also we were supposed to have Behind Her Eyes was supposed to be out in August on Netflix, which I was looking forward to. But I was also a little bit like, oh, I've got the book out, and we'll have two books competing in a time where it's hard to sell books. Anyway, but then Netflix, because COVID, other shows have been late to deliver. And so obviously there's only so many people who can do the subtitling and all the stuff that comes after it's delivered. So we're now January 2021, which actually, aside from my own impatience, is a much better time, you know, because in August everyone's going to be out because lockdown's going to be over, hopefully. So I'm kind of zen in that, you know, even if Dead to Her Sinks Without a Trace, which I hope it doesn't, but it's not the book's fault, it's not HarperCollins' fault. It's the same for most, you know, some people will have a lucky hit in all this, but, you know, most people aren't hitting the numbers they would normally hit or get in the marketing or whatever. So I'm kind of like, at least in January, we'll have the tie-in of Behind Her Eyes. It's a cold month, people are staying in. And so, but it is, I mean, I kind of forget I've still got a book coming out this year because it is that, and I see people talk, and I don't even, my COVID reaction has been quite odd with work because I'm finding it really hard to engage with anything to do with books. Like I haven't started my book, which I really do have to start. But when I see people tweeting about books, which I'm going to have to do, obviously, because, you know, I've got to do what I can. But I'm very I found some of the tweeting and stuff from authors a little bit like, oh, poor me, my book's coming out, And you kind of think, yeah, I know, I do feel sorry for you, but some people are losing their parents here. And, you know, like it is just, you've been paid for it. Some people have got no work. Some people have got.
Yeah, that's what I mean by put it in perspective.
I think that's something you tell your wife or your mom or, you know, your dog. Because actually in the state of world problems, no one's going to judge your book on this year. You know, publishers are not going to go, oh, that book, that book didn't do as well as the last book, when it's, you know, editors are not reading as well because everybody's feeling it, aren't they? You know,
I agree with most of what you say. I mean, like I said, it's you got to put it in perspective, and I've tried to be not too.
No, you're allowed to feel those things, of course.
No, so I say I'm trying to be not too, oh my God, woe is me on social media, because it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't matter. But
you do that.
For someone like me, you know, I'm a mid-list writer. Publishers will look at the numbers of your last book, Eden won't sell what I would hope it would sell, and I'm trying to sell.
I do think they'll take 2020 into account.
Well, I hope so.
I do.
I don't know.
All editors are going to be like, this is a naughty step year. You know, like they're not just going to go, oh, that's shit.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. That's one of the unquantifiable effects of COVID on what Sarah and I do. I think the entertainment industry. There's no easy way at the moment to tell what effect it's going to have on TV, movies, or on
TV. I mean, like I think the machine of it is so big, and the finances of it are so big that I know the BBC published their guidelines and Hollywood published. I mean, the problems is that once they get the insurances covered somehow,
they can start filming again.
I mean, they're starting filming already.
Mm.
Started filming already, and I mean, like. I'm adapting the Death House, and I was on the phone to the producer the other day, and I was like, "Do you know we're so lucky because most of our cast are kids. Insurance win, get covered." You know, and I also said this is going to be a great time for female actresses in their middle years because, for once, playing older will be good. You know, like if it's going to be difficult to insure the over 70s, if you've got a woman who can age up. Rather than trying to age down all the time.
Yeah, that's good.
You might be able to get away with leaving the Botox at home.
And in amongst it all as well, actually, all of the novels like The Stand and things like that, where there is a pandemic or something that happened, or a zombie disease or something that happened, sees society collapsing and people being the most selfish people and smashing, and that hasn't been the effect. In fact, people have been there to support each other and all that through it. So you do wonder if, in the future, if people write stories like that, will that be taken into account, or will they just revert back to the sort of stereotype of every man for himself and that sort of...
I think it'll be taken into account, but also most apocalyptic fiction feels more serious than this has been. That's not to poo-poo what's happened, and so many people have died and it's been awful, and I've got friends who've lost people, and it's friends of mine have been really seriously ill with it, and it's been terrible. But a good mate of mine, Chris Golden, said, well, this is a trial run for a real bad pandemic, some 10% mortality rate, which would probably be the end of society, to be honest. And it's so, stuff like that. I think it will feed into fiction, and I hope it'll feed into some more positive fiction about, pandemics and not apocalypse, but positive end of world fiction, because it has been fantastic to see how people step up, and kindness has been mooted as a strength, not a weakness, which I've always believed anyway, So that has been a good side to it, and everyone I know has done good things for neighbours and family and friends. So that's been sort of revelatory, really. But also, I'm generally fairly positive and optimistic about humanity. That's a difficult day to be saying that at the moment with everything that's going on. But if ever anything terrible happens, like a mass shooting or a massacre or a terrorist attack, I always make a point to say to my kids, just remember, the vast majority of people are really decent and nice and kind and caring, and that's really important to remember.
And actually, the stories you remember
flashes in front of you day after day, 24 hours a day.
The stories you remember from the bad things, like 9/11. I will never forget about the man who stayed. There was one man trapped or a woman trapped, and this other man could have got out, but he just stayed with them and said, "I'm not going to leave you," and of course died, which is not. Certainly would not be me, I don't think. Like those people are quite special. But, I kind of look at the apocalypse and think, yeah, I never thought it would involve so much fucking homemade sourdough bread. And crafts and bread. And also really boring griefings.
Oh, yeah.
And now we've got, can we have the next slide, please? It's like, Jesus Christ, I want the guy from Independence Day, that president, to be doing our rallying us all to stay home, save the NHS, protect lives, or whatever, protect the NHS, save lives.
Stay alert. I still don't know what alert for.
I know.
Viruses? I don't know idea what stay alert means.
Yeah, you can see it coming down the road if you just keep your eyes peeled for it.
Just dodge.
Yeah, exactly.
Insane.
Crazy.
So, what have you've mentioned it a bit, but what have you guys been working on in the main at the moment?
I am working on. So I've done episode 1 of what hopefully will be the adaptation of my next book that I haven't started writing yet. So that I know. That I'm going to start writing from that episode. I'm going to start writing the book, and so that
you're currently trying to adapt something you've not written yet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm now going to novelize my first episode, and then hopefully there will be 5 more episodes, and it will all be lovely and glorious.
Cool.
And there will be a book that's very similar to those things. And then I'm also working on a project with Carnival, who make Downton Abbey, and it's really fun. It's YA, and it's dark, and it's funny, and it's supernatural. And I'm doing a rewrite of it now, making it a bit nastier. And I'm really enjoying it because it's fun, and it's kids, like 4 teenage girls are the main characters. So it's kind of interesting. I've never done it in script where you've got that many central characters. And girls, we talk, as you can tell. So trying to get all that with these girls is quite interesting. And then also I'm adapting The Death House for one of the producers of Bohemian Rhapsody. So that's quite good because I'm changing it, and we've got some different. It's quite interesting to revisit a story you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a good distance because I'm looking at it going, that can go, that can go, that can stay, that can go. You're looking at it in a much more clinical way. So and then obviously I've got to start this book.
My spidey senses tell me you're not looking forward to starting the new novel.
Pardon? Well, I think I was actually going to say to you, I wanted to have a chat with you and Mark because it's really odd. I mean, I've never novelized something before, and obviously it may well go in 2 different ways, but it's trying to take the story from script to prose. My brain's a little bit.
So I suspect the way you're going to novelize this isn't the way Mark and I will novelize a novel, novelize a movie for Titan.
Why?
Because.
How would you approach that?
Cut and paste the script into a Word document and novelize every scene and use the same dialogue because that's
would you put it past tense, or would you? Oh, okay. So it's very. Is that what they want? They want it to
usually.
Be like
usually, it's fairly regimented that they want. They usually let you add stuff, but not take stuff away. But because you've created this,
I can do it.
I think you'll do it differently. I mean, it's all in your head anyway. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm novelizing a script, it's not my story. So I'm looking at somebody else's creation and trying to put my stamp on it, but your stamp's already on it. So how
do you do viewpoints? How do you decide when you change a viewpoint?
Decide which character's most important, which point of view is important. Yeah, even if it's first person and third person, because I enjoy messing around with that.
Yeah, that's my thing. So I think I'm going to go first person for most of it because it's obviously the script is first person, so it makes sense mentally.
Yeah.
And also the whole thing is about time. So I think first person present is a good. No, present tense. I don't mean first person, but present tense.
Yeah.
Because scripts are present tense, so I'm going to just but yeah, I think I'm a bit nervous of approaching it, but I'm just going to have to bite the bullet because deadlines.
Yeah. See, I've got no deadlines. Like I said, everything I'm working on is on spec. So I've got the novel, which is currently residing in 7 notebooks, including product.
There's like a wonderful notebook there you've got there.
And I've got the new one that you sent me, which I'm going to break into today or tomorrow on a new idea I've got. So I've got a novel to transcribe, edit, and make good. And I'm working on a new novella with Chris Golden on and off. One of my novels.
One with Mark Morris.
Oh, that's with our agent now. So I've written a novel with Mark Morris, which is
that YA one you started when I was still teaching?
Yes, it was. We started writing it 12 years ago, and we finished it, and it's with our agent now. So remaining to be seen what happens with that. I've also got so one of my books has been sold to a TV company in America that I can't announce, unfortunately, because it's not announced. But that's been adapted by a US writer. That same writer and I are working on another one of my projects to try and adapt for TV and get it into a sort of state to pitch it in the States. And another one of my novels, I'm also working on with another writer to try and develop.
You love a collaboration.
I love collaborating. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it. And I think partly, and this sounds weird after writing so many novels, but partly it's a confidence thing. Partly, I find collaboration on TV stuff and screen stuff much more enjoyable as a writer, because
I always think you kind of natural. I suppose at the spec stage, yes, because that's how it is anyway. Whereas I feel like I'm collaborating because I hand it in, and then we'll have a Zoom or a Teams, Microsoft Teams. And then it'd be like, oh, what do you think about it? So then you're kind of collaborating with the production people.
Oh, we'll get that anyway. You know, if two of us are writing it as opposed to one, we'll still get all that with any producers we have.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like a lead into that process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Collaborating. So you may as well, it's an easier thing. I'm just not very good at it, collaborating.
Well, actually, that's one of the other questions that we got in from Nikki. Said, would you two, because obviously you've known each other for a long time, and you used to, I think, Sarah, you said when we last spoke that you used to go on sort of writing retreats with, and Tim was there and stuff. Would you ever consider writing something together?
Do you know, of all the people, I probably would on a script or something with Tim, because aside from the fact that we both have similar sort of story sensibilities, Tim is also the most driven, I think.
We don't know about that.
No, but you're very you never, and you see some writers, they get a knock, they cry about it on social media, it's all woe with me, blah, 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 blah. Tim has had some really bad luck.
I cry about them to Sarah.
Yeah, just cry about. I do that thing Tarek did. I just freeze my screen.
Pour your heart out, Tim.
I've got a little recording that I press a button, it goes, but he's always just gets back up and gets straight back on the horse. Because, things that have been out of your control, like, what was that book? Freaking hell.
Oh,
Coldbrook, yeah.
I had a nasty editing experience on Coldbrook. It all turned out great in the end, but there
were some ups and downs with getting that out.
Some ups and downs, yeah.
Which were not to do with you and all to do with publisher. And a lot of people would have been really kind of body blowed, and it was a body blow, but he's very driven and also very business minded, which I am very business minded. So I could collaborate with Tim because he wouldn't try and drag me down the let's create something deep and meaningful and cry about it for hours sort of thing. Which I believe you would do, create something that's deep and meaningful. But I don't get caught up with the being a writer thing. I take the work seriously. I don't take myself seriously.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're probably more. I'm on the squash now. The beer's gone.
I still get my tea.
It's tough. I don't know why we've never talked about collaborating. We should talk about something that would be really good. And I'm also responsible. I must apologise to everyone viewing for Sarah getting into publishing. Actually,
I know.
The first person she contacted in the horror genre to say, "Will you read my book?"
He was my first writer friend.
Oh, is that right?
Because this was back in the day when the Horror Writers Association of America. This is how old we are. It was pre. I think the internet, we had the internet, but it wasn't like this.
You could just, it was like everything was on forums, it was all that kind of black background, little shock lines and message boards and
message boards. But they used to send out this printed newsletter.
Yeah.
And because we didn't have social media or anything, so I was living in Devon. I was quite unhappy. I was writing this book. And I'd read a couple of Tim's stuff because I used to get Best New Horror, and so I'd read quite a lot of his short fiction and White. I think I'd read, and then you had The Nature of Balance coming out, didn't you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And so I had written this book, and I was like, "Oh, he's published by Leisure, which I wanted to be published by," and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to send him a couple of chapters of my book." But being a canny lassie who was a lot younger and a lot hotter then, I put a little photo.
Just nice handwritten letters. Yeah. Just in case you want to know what I look like, here's a picture. Look, Sarah. Yeah. But I wouldn't have blurred it if it wasn't a brilliant. Was that The Hidden, the first one? Was it The Hidden? Yeah.
And then I came to your. I was married at the time, wasn't I? I was married.
Oh, my book launch in Killeen.
We came to your book launch in where we drove from Devon to Wales. Came to your book launch.
That's it.
Met your agent, who became my agent.
Yeah.
And we had the worst agent in the world, and he's still advertising for his creative writing courses.
Is he still doing it?
I found something online, and he's still doing some, like, he does creative writing lecturing or something. He goes,
Right.
you know, I used to be an agent for Sarah Pinborough, Tim Lebbon, Adam Roberts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think you told us about him. He sent Tim a letter just with Lebbon written on it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Tim?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that was for the time after we parted, he was very good at sending royalty checks. That not that I get many royalty checks, but
I didn't get any.
Well, there was one novel I wrote, Dusk, years ago in the States, and I still haven't had a royalty check for a while. But he was very good at passing them on. But he'd write Lebbon address and a second class stamp.
Because we all just left it.
Totally fair enough. But to be fair to him, he did pass these things on. So yeah. Yeah.
Well,
so we can exclusively announce then that you guys are going to do your first book together and launch it.
It might be a film rather than a book. It might be.
And then we look forward to the credit on the opening credits.
Yeah. Special thanks to
Yeah. Although with Tim's collaborations, it would take about 5 years because he's so booked up.
A couple of things going on, but I always like to have. But like you're working on 3 or 4 or 5 things. I'm working on 3, 4, 5 things.
Well, we had this was actually Tarek's idea. He came up with quite a good little game for the end of this. So Tarek, do you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we often end with a kind of either or question, but we thought it might be quite fun for you guys to try and answer a question about each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to read you a quote from the front of a book, one of either of your books. There's a quote about the book or about the writing, and you have to try and work out who it's about.
Have you got some bad 1-star reviews in there?
No. They're all wonderful quotes.
Yeah, that would have been even better actually.
I know. The worst book I've ever read. So they're all very nice quotes, and all you have to do is work out who the quote is about. So
okay,
I'll go for the first one. The first one is. Oh, and you get a bonus point if you can say what the book is, what book it was on. So the first one, you are in the hands of a master.
Tim, it's got to be about Tim.
That's Josh Malerman talking about Eden.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to forget Malerman saying that, am I? Bless him.
I did. It was interesting because obviously I know when The Silence came out, there was a whole hoorah about The Silence and Bird Box, and I thought for anyone listening, The Silence was their first, and
Silence, Quiet Place.
It was Silence and Quiet Place.
Sorry, it's Quiet Place.
Quiet Place.
On that case, my point is completely ruined. What I was going to say.
We'll cut that out, Tarek. It's fine.
It's fine.
I'll do one. Lean and mean, dark and disturbing.
I think that's one of Sarah's.
Is that one of mine?
It is.
Literally
That
no
was your
idea.
pal Joe Hill.
Oh.
Is it Behind Her Eyes?
Actually, I didn't write down what the book that was, so I'm going to say yes.
You've done well in this round, Tarek. Well done.
I'm really it's really good. Okay, the next one. Blank is about to become your new obsession.
Oh, that's me, Harlan Coben, Behind Her Eyes.
Behind Her Eyes. I know that one. Yeah.
You went for older
Not
books.
just Behind Her Eyes, it's in front of all of my books.
A mesmerizing blend of horror, fantasy, and crime.
That's obviously Behind Her Eyes. Somebody, I don't know who did done that.
Mayhem?
No, it's For the Age. So it's yours, for you.
That was you.
Who was it from, Tarek? Again, you've not written down who said that.
Listen, stop asking me these difficult questions when we're live on air, Marco.
I don't know. I don't know who that is.
maybe
I
that's
believe it was
character.
by, I'm going to say Stephen King. I'm pretty sure that was
I was
Stephen
gonna
King.
say
Tim's
mum.
Yeah. Good quote. I like that. Yeah. Book wasn't
Right,
very
and then the last one, we always, as Tarek said, do the either or thing at the end of the podcast. But again, what we're going to do is we're going to do one each, but you have to say what you think the other person would say, what the other person picked. So, Sarah, if I can start with you, what do you think Tim would pick between a real book or an e-book?
Real book.
well. Look behind me, guys.
I know.
It's not wallpaper.
Okay, Tim, a question for you. Do you think Sarah would prefer a fancy restaurant or a takeaway?
Fancy restaurant,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, to be fair, it's all food. I'm literally thinking, could I have a takeaway from a fancy restaurant?
Oh, combined
These days
the
you
two.
can. Yeah.
These days, takeaway all the way. Old days, fancy
These days,
restaurant.
Okay, Sarah. TV or cinema
For Tim,
for Tim?
I'm not even sure I know that one.
I think Tim would like to think it was cinema, but it's actually TV.
Yeah, I think it is. There was a discussion recently on Facebook about.
Yeah, I was trying to think if you'd commented on it.
I did. I love going to the cinema with my family, and because one of our local cinemas, View in Cwmbran, is just, well, Christ, we haven't been for a while, obviously. But before lockdown, they refurbished themselves, so every seat was reclining leather, and it was £6 a ticket. So a family night out was like 35 quid with a drink and each. It's a fantastic night out. But yeah, I do like, because TV, you can have a bottle of wine, and we're binging Ozark at the moment, which is just amazing.
Oh, I love that. Wait till you
It's
get
great,
to
yeah.
Hang on, shut up. No, nobody say
No
anything.
spoilers. How far are you through it?
Tonight we're watching last episode of season 2.
Ooh,
the best.
the last episode, nice.
Yeah, the season 3 is really good. Yeah, I've heard.
Season 3
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, very good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Just it takes you away from everything. It's superb. Great.
Brilliant.
And okay, last one then, Tim. This is for, what do you think Sarah would choose, horror or fantasy?
Horror.
Yeah, I don't read fantasy.
Well, it's the easy one. You guys done very well. Scored very highly.
I mean, I used to read a lot of fantasy, but I haven't really as an adult. Occasionally I do, but not horror, definitely. Horror.
I've written more fantasy than I've read, probably.
Mm.
Be not a great admission. Sarah, those questions. Whew.
Yeah, we were easy. They were far too easy. Next time we have to go a lot harder, I think.
Okay.
And
We had one more question. We had one more question from someone, which was an odd one, but I'll put it to you to see what you. Who would win in a fight, Harry Potter or Matilda?
Or Matilda, without a doubt, I think.
I've never seen Matilda, so I don't know.
You've never seen what? Oh, you must have read the book though, surely. You've never read the book or seen the film
I
Matilda,
might have done when I
and
was
you call yourself an author.
That was a long time ago. And I've only read 2 Harry Potter books.
These are revelations coming out.
Well,
This is-
to be fair, when the Harry Potter books came out, I had started writing my own YA trilogy, which was Double-Edged Sword, and so I didn't want to be influenced.
Mm.
And I reread a book recently and realised where all my influences for that book came from. So, well, I might have just read Harry Potter. It might have been more successful. Yeah.
So I've not read any Harry Potter. That's my admission for the.
Any Harry Potter.
Mm.
Interesting.
Mm. Yeah,
So
we're older
they
than
are-
you, Tarek. We're older than you.
I know when you were in school, no? What's going on?
God, ooh, what was I reading when I was in school? James Herbert, basically.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there was one more question I had for you, which was if you had to recommend one horror book, because you both love your horror, to someone, what would the book that you would pick be?
So I've just read and blurred Paul Tremblay's new book, Survivor Song, which is, I love his stuff, and I think it's his best novel yet. It's just brilliant. I've got
that. I'm looking at it right now. It's on one of my tables.
good. I think you'd love it. Actually, it's quite a daring book. I think I'd love you to read it and hear what you all think of it. Actually, I think it's out in July. Actually, just a terrific book. He's a lovely guy. You know, he's deserving all the success, and this one's going to notch him up another few rungs on the ladder. I think. Amazing book.
Yes, we'll check that out.
Horror for some. Well, I would say I mean two really. Alma Katsu's The Deep. I really enjoyed. But Michelle Paver, that first one about the any Michelle Paver really, but the first hang on, old lady brain, I'm going in.
The Deep, yeah. I've read The Hunger, Alma's The Hunger, which is brilliant, but I need to read The Deep.
The Deep I found way better.
Right.
And I mean I like The Hunger, but I loved The Hunger, but I really liked The Deep. I thought, but I love anything Titanic-y. It's Michelle Paver. I want Michelle Paver horror because she's actually a children's writer. Horror. Sorry.
That's not a massive genre, is it? Anything Titanic?
Dark Matter.
Oh, Dark Matter. I've heard that. Amazing. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's the only book I've read as an adult that has scared me.
Yeah. Right.
Proper, and it's not. It's that awful creeping dread. It's filled with it. It's brilliant. It's really, really brilliant. Thin Air is almost as good, but Dark Matter is really good.
Right.
Really, really good.
Brilliant. 2 excellent. A bunch of recommendations then.
That's good.
Read it quickly, which I think with horror works better. I like that kind of shorter length.
Totally.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that kind of suspense going for too long. It burns you out a little bit and you start to tune out of it. I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I if I could make a living writing novellas, I would, because I love writing them. And some of the novellas I've written have got me, tend to be more successful for me critically, but they just don't pay much. Unless you get made into a movie, which happens, but not very often, I am toying with the idea of writing some more novellas. But
novellas, you do really well. Your novellas, I think I like your novellas best.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. Yeah.
I think it's your natural form.
Yeah. But it is for horror, I think. A lot.
It's like you, it's lean and mean.
Lean and mean. I'm not lean and mean at the moment. I haven't actually put on any weight during lockdown. I've just redistributed, I think. I haven't been swimming for like 10 weeks and I'm so missing it. And so some muscles gone from my shoulders and reimagined myself at waist.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to do that. We really enjoyed that chat.
It
looks like Tarek's frozen again.
He has, hasn't he? And that's a really funny freeze.
Yeah. He's gurning.
Yeah.